Thank you. Yes, the issues within India are entirely regional, as was just pointed out. We're looking at parts of India right now in the south and northeast with birth rates as low as Europe and even Japan. So once you look at a very granular level, we do not see this as being a singular entity, as the previous speaker was just saying. You have to look at that low level. India now has got everything baked in for what will be a humanitarian crisis of an aging society like Japan, like Europe, 40 to 50 years from now. So we've got to be very careful when we talk about the growth of the population, because we effectively know that the population of India will peak around 2050 at around 1.7, perhaps 1.8 billion people. It will then start to shrink. And what I think countries like Japan and Europe perhaps wished they'd considered decades ago was the future impact. And just to put one more fact on the table, as it were, the number of births, total births per year in India, has been shrinking over the past decade, and quite rapidly, in fact. It's because with the birth rate now below replacement level, the number of young people who are going to become future parents is shrinking, and that's a spiral, as other nations have found, that will go down and down and down until some future generation goes back up to a rate of 2 again. So I'm not sure, really, we should be focusing on total population here. We can, through demographics, have a pretty long lens for a generation or two, and we can see really the direction this is going in. So I'm very excited for India. I've been there several times. I filmed my documentary there. I can see the buzz in the country about becoming the world's populous nation. I think that will have some positive effects for sure, on the mindset at least. But longer term, there's a problem here.
So if you don't look at the entire population, I mean, what about that segment that our reporter talked about, the 70% of Indians who are below the age of 35? I mean, how big a challenge is that going to pose?
Well, that's right. Over the next 30, 40 years, unquestionably, there'll be both opportunities and challenges for that generation. I think, I'm quite sure the economic boost that India will receive will be a positive thing for many, many people. But if you talk to people on the ground in India, if you go into people's homes and all kinds of levels of homes, I've been in homes and filmed in, from the slums of Mumbai to wealthier parts, education is now the key everywhere. It was quite remarkable. Everyone is thinking only education, and what came over was people are thinking of 1 or 2 children. Now, the previous speaker was absolutely right. When you get to areas where there's extreme poverty, people will naturally have larger children, because that's what happens everywhere, not just in India. So I can see a real transition underway here, and we've got to be a little bit careful of any policies or advice that could lead to dropping birth rates lower than they are, because we know what happens. We've seen it everywhere. So it's a very delicate situation, but certainly for the next few decades, I can see a lot of positives coming from this economically.